Hi everyone, my name is Tony Colazzo and I'm a solution consultant in the insurance business unit here at Appian. In a previous video, I shared how we're using AI, including machine learning and Gen AI, to streamline underwriting by automating the intake of emails and documents. Today, I'm going to pick up where I left off and talk about how we're continuing to evolve those capabilities, specifically how we're making AI even more usable and impactful for underwriters right where the work happens. And we're doing this with a new capability we've introduced called AI Document Center. But before I get into that, I'm going to take a step back, recap what I covered in my previous video, and look at what we're seeing in the market when it comes to traditional IDP tools and the challenges our insurance customers are running into when trying to operationalize AI into their workflows. Now at Appian, we work with some of the largest insurance providers in the world, helping them solve some of the most complex challenges in the industry, whether it's improving operational efficiency, enhancing customer experiences, or streamlining complex workflows. We empower insurers to stay competitive and achieve their business goals. One of the biggest challenges we see is in underwriting. Insurers want to drive revenue and make informed, data-driven decisions and do it quickly. But the problem is underwriters require a complete picture of risk. That data is spread across forms, emails, and legacy systems. And instead of focusing on decision-making, underwriters often spend a large chunk of their time manually searching for, reading, and re-entering data, and that's where AI-powered automation can help. In a previous video, I talked about how we're using AI and machine learning to make underwriters more efficient by automating the time-consuming work of reading, extracting, and organizing submission data. We looked at how Appian uses IDP to extract data from structured documents, so things like accord forms or standardized loss run reports, where the layout is consistent and the fields are predictable. And for unstructured content like broker emails, freeform narratives, or scanned documents with varying formats, we're applying generative AI to intelligently extract the right information no matter how the data is presented. And these capabilities are built into our underwriting workbench to jumpstart the underwriting process right where it starts. And this is what eliminates the manual work involved with organizing this critical data so underwriters can begin the real work of assessing risk and making decisions. But just as important, this is what unlocks intelligent automation before a person even touches a submission. By extracting structured data up front, we can apply business logic right away to do things like automating the declination of submissions that don't meet specific criteria, or routing high-value, low-risk cases to the top of the queue and setting the stage for faster, more profitable decisions. And we've already built this. Appian's Connected Underwriting Workbench is where this all comes together, where the data lands, and where underwriters do their work. But we're not stopping there. So before we talk about what's next, let's take a step back and look at what we're seeing in the broader market when it comes to IDP tools and where traditional IDP typically breaks down, especially in real-world underwriting environments. First, these systems are usually template-driven. They work really well until they don't. If a broker tweaks the layout of a submission or includes multiple endorsements in a PDF, the model can't often recognize what it's looking at, and that's when someone has to manually step in, and that slows things down. Second, they require a lot of upfront work just to get started. You need labeled training data, time to configure and tune models, and ongoing maintenance to support new document types or business rules. So before you actually see any value, you've already sunk a lot of time and budget into the setup. Third, they don't handle document variability very well. Underwriters deal with scanned forms, broker emails, spreadsheets, embedded attachments, handwritten notes. None of these follow a consistent format, and these tools just weren't built for that level of messiness. And to make things worse, there's usually no automated pre-processing to clean up those inputs. So noisy, inconsistent documents get pushed through as is, creating errors and downstream rework. Fourth, and I think this is one of the biggest gaps, is that they're disconnected from the underwriting workflow. Even when the extraction works, the data doesn't flow directly into the underwriter's system or the case view. It ends up in a back-end table or a staging area, waiting for someone to come in and manually validate it. And on the point of accuracy, yes, these models can hit a decent level of accuracy, but not usually enough to support straight-through processing. And you may still need validation, and honestly, that's okay. But if you're going to have a validation step, that needs to happen where the underwriter is actually working, not off to the side in a separate tool or queue. So that's the real disconnect, is that these tools add steps instead of removing them, and operations or underwriters end up doing the same manual work, just now with another layer in between. So our answer to all of these challenges, the complexity, the inconsistency, the disconnect from workflow, is the AI Document Center. AI Document Center is a purpose-built tool for managing the entire lifecycle of intelligent document processing using Gen AI. And while the underlying technologies, machine learning, generative AI, these aren't brand new. But what is new is having a single tool that brings together the most powerful parts of IDP and makes them actually usable. But the real value of the AI Document Center isn't just the models, it's how we help you actually use them effectively in underwriting. We've taken out the complexity out of the process, so you don't need prompt engineering, expertise, or weeks of tuning to get value. You can create, test, refine, and deploy models all in one place and do it quickly. And it's a guided experience that's designed for business and IT teams to work together. We've also solved a major problem with AI adoption, and this is going to be the confidence in the output. With a built-in reconciliation interface, you can review what was extracted, adjust it, and improve the model over time without needing to start from scratch. And most importantly, these models don't just sit in a sandbox, they're built to run in production in your underwriting workflow. So instead of sending extracted data to a staging table, it flows right into your workbench or any Appian process where decisions actually happen. So this solves not just the limitations of traditional IDP, but also the friction of trying to bolt on external Gen AI tools that weren't built for your environment or your data. So what you're about to see is a fully integrated experience from creating and refining models to see them run live inside an underwriting process. So what I'd like to do next is demonstrate the process of building and deploying a smart extraction model. We'll start by creating a model and show you how we train it to recognize fields. Next, we'll test and reconcile fields to validate how it performs against real documents. Then we'll tune the model, we'll analyze the results and adjust prompts to improve the accuracy. And then we'll deploy it into production. Finally, we're going to wrap up by demoing a real use case of that model in a live demo environment. This is Appian's AI Document Center, which is the central workspace where we manage, monitor, and optimize all our document extraction models. Right here on the home screen, we get a bird's eye view of model activity, including total tokens consumed, giving us insight into the process volume, the number of extraction instances running, and the average extraction accuracy across all models. Below that, you'll see our top extraction models. In this case, we're working with some common insurance documents like accord forms, schedule of values. This dashboard really lets us quickly spot which models are doing well, heavy lifting, and gives us a way to dig deeper when we need to fine-tune performance. Next, I want to look at the models we have defined within the tool and the process of what it looks like to actually create a new one. So what we see here are all the models I've created in my environment. And just a level set, when you create a model in Appian, it's going to be for a specific type of document, like something like an application form, a loss run, or schedule of values. And what I want to make really clear is we don't create models for every possible variation of the document like you would for standard IDP and machine learning training. So instead of trying to handle all those possible variations in layout, the model focuses on consistently pulling the specific data fields you care about in that document. So let's start with how easy it is to actually create a new model. When we create a model, the tool is going to walk us through the process step by step, starting with a name. Next, we're going to configure any sections if applicable. And now we're going to tell the model what data fields we want to extract from the documents. So we can either configure them manually, describe the fields and let AI automatically create them for us, or we can upload an example document, provide instructions, and let the AI do the rest. So for this example, I'm going to describe the fields and let the Gen AI do the rest for me. And we can see it configured our fields, it configured our data type, and this is where we also can add an extraction prompt to provide additional instructions to fine-tune and get better accuracy, but we're going to come back to that. The last part is we want to tell the model what role we want it to play and provide any additional instructions. So for this example, we're going to tell it to play the role of an underwriting operations expert. And finally, we're going to create the model for us to work with, which will also generate all the design objects so we can easily deploy them into production. Now that our model is created, we can actually start testing. So for this demo, I've actually already created a model. I ran some testing so we have some data to work with, and you can see that my model has a 96% accuracy. And this represents an average of all the test documents I've done against this specific model. So let's see what it looks like to actually run extraction. So I'll come in here, and all I need to do is upload a document. Now I can also upload multiple documents in here to run many different tests at once if I'd like. And then I just click extract. And once the process is started, you'll see it show up in one of two places, either under the latest instances tabs, which is going to show us the most recent ones I've done, or in the instances tab at the top. Now what we see here are all the documents that I'm in process of or have completed testing on in the accuracy of each after I've done a reconciliation. And it's going to give me a really high level view to help me evaluate my results, where it did good, where it went wrong, and these results are going to help me and guide me as I make adjustments to my model. So let's look at one of these for example. Now this is a document I've already run extraction on, I've reconciled, and I made adjustments to the results that I got. That's why I'm seeing a 90% accuracy. But when I reconcile a document, it's going to open up a separate screen. I could shift the view to make it a little bit easier. And what I'll do is see what the model mapped specific fields to. And then I'll go and I'll compare it to the document and make sure that it mapped everything correctly. Now, when I first saw this document, I noticed there were some discrepancies for the dates, right? I've made the adjustments, that's why they're correct now. But what it did initially is it actually took the inception date and mapped it to the date of loss. So what I did is I made the adjustments and then I submitted this. And this is why this is really important, because this accuracy that we're showing here is not just a number. It's documenting what and where the adjustments I made were, so I know how I want to improve my model. And these are the adjustments I made and what impacted the accuracy. So now as I go through all my test documents one by one, I'm cataloging all the corrections I needed to make. So when it comes time to apply improvements and fine-tune my model, I can see the aggregate results of my testing and how well my model is performing against each field. And these results are going to tell me what fields I want to focus on and what prompts I will need to fine-tune to get better accuracy from my extraction. So as you can see here, I've added a prompt for the date of loss field to adjust for the inconsistencies I was getting in my extraction. And after we add this prompt, we can come back and run another test on that same document that I just showed you and see how well it's performing. So we'll choose that new document and then we'll run extraction. Once the extraction is complete, we can now perform a reconciliation on the document and see how well my newer adjusted prompt has improved my accuracy. Now, if we look closely at the date of loss field, we can see now that that field has now been extracted accurately compared to the last time we ran reconciliation because of the new prompt that we added for this particular field. So at this point, I'm confident that my model is going to perform much better. And the next thing I want to do is show you this model in action in an underwriting production example. So this is Appians Underwriting Workbench. And let's say that I'm an underwriter working on a submission for Dune Office Automation. And as I was working on the submission, I noticed that there was no loss history included with the original submission. So what I did is I reached out to the broker for more information and they sent me back a loss run with all the information that I needed. So now that I have the document, I'm going to upload this document into the submission for automated extraction. Now, in a real production scenario, this entire process would be automated. Underwriters would send a request to the broker through the workbench, and when the broker responds, the workbench would automatically identify the types of documents they are and then run them through the proper extraction for the document and write its contents to the submission. But for the purposes of this demo, I'm going to do this part manually. And once I upload the document, I'm going to choose the model that correlates with the type of document that I've uploaded. And once extraction is complete, we'll have a task waiting for us to review the results and confirm everything was extracted correctly. And based on everything I see, it looks good and everything was extracted perfectly and no corrections or adjustments need to be made. And this is really the end state we're helping underwriters get to, where they don't have to make any corrections. And this is why AI Document Center is so powerful, because we're able to create these models, test them, identify the areas for improvement, easily tune the prompts, and then deploy them into production. And the end goal is that our accuracy and results are so good that you as an organization are comfortable with straight-through processing, and you can substantially reduce or eliminate the need for underwriters to deal with the manual and time-consuming work of sifting through documents, looking for the information they need to make fast and accurate decisions. So what I'm going to do here is submit the results, and then we'll see that it's going to be automatically written to the right fields within the workbench. So now I can navigate to the risk detail section and see under the loss history that everything that was extracted from the document has now been written to the submission. Quickly recapping everything that we just saw. Firstly, we looked at how we can create an extraction model in AI Document Center. Then we saw how we can test and reconcile models to validate how it performs against real documents. Then we looked at tuning a model, analyzing the results, adjusting prompts, and improving accuracy. And lastly, we saw that model deployed in a production example and saw it in action as that model was used to extract data and write it to an underwriting submission. The last thing I want to leave you with is a real-world example from one of the largest general insurers in the Asia-Pacific region, a company that operates across multiple countries and processing thousands of broker-submitted quotes every month, often in inconsistent or handwritten formats. They deployed Appian's AI-powered document ingestion solution in just 6 weeks. And as of 2025, they're seeing document processing levels between 97 and 99%. And this improvement has led to over $400,000 in expected monthly revenue growth and $1 million in annual operational cost savings. So this is a really good example of how AI and automation can meaningfully transform underwriting, improving both speed and accuracy at scale. If you're looking for ways to bring this kind of automation, speed, and accuracy to your underwriting operations, I'd love to explore how Appian can deliver similar results in your organization. Thanks again for your time, and feel free to reach out with any questions or ideas.